Hello and welcome back to Make Do. I'm David.
And I'm James. It's been a little over a year since our first video where we made our Mando helmet.
We thought it was time to tackle Mando's Amban Pulse Rifle from The Mandalorian. We're working with the expertly designed files from Straker Armory. We'll have a link to his Etsy shop in the description below.
For this project, we're using PLA prints for the larger parts of the rifle, as well as resin prints for the more detailed parts.
In addition to the printed parts, we're also going to need a few things from the hardware store, but more on that later.
There's a lot of parts, you better get working.
Oh, am I making this? Don't worry, you'll get the sand. Okay, let's get started. There are a few parts that I can go ahead and pre-assemble. Gluing these parts together now, before sanding, will help blend the separate prints together and make them look more like one single piece. Just a little super thin CA glue helps to ensure a good connection. Actually, don't glue these together just yet. Or these. Okay, now we can sand. Hey, James, it's your favorite part.
We're trying a new filament that seems to sand a little better. We'll put a link below if anyone else wants to try it. The closest thing to a shortcut with larger projects like this we found is to test fit parts together so you can see which faces won't end up being seen. Those faces don't need to be sanded. We continue through our standard sanding process, filling in any gaps with wood filler and sanding smooth once dry. There are a lot of parts and this took forever. As always, this is the worst part, but it has the biggest payoff in the final product. Now for a few coats of primer. Then it's back to sanding with some higher grits, sanding sponges, and steel wool.
Some parts need a little extra heavy-duty sanding to ensure that they will fit after paint is applied. Fixing this now will save us a lot of headaches later. Oh, that sounds terrible. Oof. Next up, we have a little bit more pre-assembly before final paint. These pieces are going to end up being the same color, so it's safe to glue them together now. Remember to scratch the surface before gluing to ensure a good connection. Some of these parts are a little tricky to line up, so I take my time and triple check everything before gluing. Before final paint, I do cut the 1-inch PVC pipe down to its final length of 15 inches. For the stock of the rifle, I want to mimic a wood finish as best I can. For that, I decided to hand paint instead of using rattle cans to keep things more organic. For this, I use a collection of browns, blacks, and reds to match the color of the wood. I start layering on watered down coats, making sure to keep my brush strokes all moving in the same direction to achieve the look of wood grain. By adding transparent layers on top of each other, I'm able to build up a deeper, rich color that I won't get if I just do one thick coat. I continue adding layers until I'm happy with the effect. And I'm actually pretty pleased with the final result. It's pretty convincing.
While David was working on the stock, I was able to apply the final coats of paint on the rest of our parts. This paint job has a lot of colors, and we spent a lot of time picking out the perfect colors. This isn't 100% accurate to the show, but we think it's an approachable paint job that keeps the spirit and overall feel of the prop. We'll have a full breakdown of the colors we used in the description.
With everything painted, I can start final assembly. This thing is a bit of a puzzle, and the creator did put together a really helpful guide that we did reference a lot while assembling. We hope our video is a nice supplement for anyone looking to tackle this project. Before I glue this together, there are a few details I want to highlight with some gold rub and buff. The cartridge assembly has a few moving parts that are sandwiched between the two halves. In the end, this will create a loading breech that actually works. I'm careful when gluing to make sure I don't glue any of the moving parts in place. There are two posts that receive a small spring. This will give us the movement a little bit later on. I also add some gold rub and buff to these greeblies before gluing them in place. I then continue with the assembly. The file is pretty well designed, and if you take your time, you will see that every part references another. Again, take your time and drive it before committing. I made sure to keep the barrel straight when gluing it into the main body, reinforcing the joint with super thin CA glue. I ended up using a few real screws left over from our Vash build for a little bit of extra detailing. This next part is a little tricky. I have to slide a few parts over the barrel before gluing in the barrel grip. I slide these on, making sure everything is oriented correctly. I then grab our wooden dowel that I've cut down to 20 inches in length and guide it through the various parts. With the barrel capped off, I can continue gluing the other pieces in place, making sure everything is aligned. Here I use the scope to make sure these brass pieces are in the correct location before securing. place this ring midway between the scope mount and the barrel grip. The rest of the barrel fits in place, capping off our wooden dowel. This is where the pre-sanding really paid off. All of these fit together nicely. The tuning fork assembly is actually designed to be removable from the main barrel. I fit the parts around the excess wooden dowel and glue everything in place. The dowel's not necessary, but it helped line everything up. For the trigger assembly, I had a small post to anchor a rubber band to make the trigger pull a little more realistic. Then glue the whole assembly to the stock, being careful not to glue the trigger in place. Then I can add this to the main assembly. Here I'm just using CA glue, but I do end up going back and adding a stronger 2-part epoxy to make sure everything is secure. Then I glue the scope in place. And pop the fork on the end. This is looking really good, but it's way too clean for Star Wars. Let's oil this up using some water mixable oil paints, a few brushes, and some other tools to make this thing look used. When weathering, I always try and just think of where the dirt and grime would naturally build up. A good trick is to actually try and clean off the paint you're applying quickly, because this ends up mimicking the cleaning process the rifle might actually go through. finish it off, I pull a few highlights back out with the gold and silver rub and buff. And with that, we're finished.
Big shout out to Straker Armory. These files were a pleasure to work with, and the end result is fantastic.
And it's huge.
It is our largest build to date. I think I say this every time, but this is probably my favorite.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to work with both the resin and the FDM prints and play around with all the different finishes and colors. I think this probably has the most individual color types that we've used on any project.
Yeah, it all really came together nicely.
If you want to stay up to date on all of our future projects, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell.
If you have an idea for a future project, drop a comment below.
And of course, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
So I guess we'll have to make a full Mando armor set next, right?
See you in the next one.
Thanks for watching.